Hello, BookTube. This is my first posting on BookTube, so I guess that makes me a newbie. I wasn't sure how to start with all of this, but I did notice when I looked at other BookTubers who have been on here for a while that there was kind of a questionnaire. I don't know who drew it up, but I was able to copy down some questions that are a nice way of kind of introducing myself. Some of the questions I kind of conflated into one. I don't think this is an official questionnaire, but it's a good way of introducing myself, so we'll go with that. Why did you start a BookTube channel? I think my answer to this would be the same as most of you BookTubers out there, and maybe even those of you who watch BookTube on a regular basis. I mean, what's this all about? It's about books. It's a love for books and a love of reading. It's always a fun thing to be able to connect with other people who have read the same book that you've read, or maybe are kind of interested in a book that you've read, or you can kind of bring notice to a really good book or some criticism to a book that's not so good. Most of my friends are readers, my daughters are readers, and that's a wonderful thing. However, I don't always read the same things they read, and they're not always reading the same things I'm reading. There's that wonderful feeling when you've finished a good book and you just want to tell the world about it. And I can usually bore my friends and family with what I've just read, especially if it's not a bestseller or if it's something that they're not at all interested in. So I think with BookTube, I can kind of increase my odds that at least I'll find something of an audience. But it's just the joy of books, the joy of reading, and the joy of talking about books. And BookTube, I think, is a perfect way to do that, a perfect way to connect and to reach out. How did you pick the name of your BookTube channel? I know some of the BookTubers use their full name. I was going to go with that. I don't know, maybe I'm a little paranoid. There's always those horror stories about people who attract the wrong kind of attention and identity theft and all that business. Maybe on BookTube you wouldn't really attract troublemakers. Readers usually aren't troublemakers. But I thought I would just kind of keep it easy. I'm giving you my full first name, Robert, and the initial, the first letter of my last name, Robert G. I did think I gave myself a title too, Reader of Books. I like it. It's kind of over the top, a little melodramatic, as if I were saying, slayer of dragons, seeker of truth, lover of God, that kind of thing. It's kind of a medieval thing, but I like it. Maybe I'll have some business cards made up that have my full name and then Reader of Books, because that's what I am more than anything else, I think. What can you bring to BookTube? I would guess I'm probably older than most people on BookTube. I might even be older than Steve Donahue, who seems to be like the great patriarch of BookTube. If I'm not older than he is, we're probably about the same age. With age comes experience, not necessarily wisdom, but experience. And I think when it comes to reading, you begin to notice certain trends that after a while do start to repeat themselves. You'll come across a new author who is telling a story that's been told many times before. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but you have more to judge it against. This author reminds me of this other author from 30 years ago who handled the same subject matter, but this new author is handling it a little bit better, or this other author had a different way of approaching the subject matter. There's more to draw from, more experience to draw from. So I think, and I've always been a voracious reader, so I think my age is something kind of unique I can bring to BookTube. And I do have a preference for older books. I'll be reading the occasional bestseller, but I like to look further back, sometimes very far back into antiquity. I like old books and books that often aren't read by others, or books you may have heard of, but for whatever reason you shied away from. Maybe I can bring you some more information or interest in those books. Also, I'm a part of academia. I am a college lecturer. I teach history, and I've been doing that for most of my adult life. Well, not really. 25 years, maybe 30 years now. At any rate, and I kind of bring that academic approach to books. I hope not in a dry and boring way, but the fact that I'm a history teacher, I can perhaps put certain books in their historical context. That's not always necessary, but still it can help sometimes. So that's something kind of unique I can bring to it, a more academic approach. But at the same time, I want to be entertaining and have some fun with this. What won't I be doing? I think the real question being asked here is, what kind of books won't I be reading? I'll read pretty much anything. If I had to limit or put some restrictions on some of the things I won't read, I'm not a big fan of self-help books, especially the ones that promise, a cure. they often seem like they're written by snake oil salesmen. You'll be a better person within 30 days if you just read my book. Read this book and all your problems will vanish. I think you know what I'm talking about. So not so much with those kinds of books. Also, probably not too much in the way of political books. I like politics, but not politicians. I'm talking about the kind of books that are written by people who are currently running for office, or people who currently have attained office in Congress or in the presidency or even in the Supreme Court. Usually those books really are not written by those people. They have ghostwriters and they're pushing some kind of political agenda. So not so much of that. Also, books that deal with very timely issues, but also issues that might be kind of transient, that might be forgotten in a few years. So I'll be avoiding those kinds of things. Also, something I'll never be doing, I'm never going to encourage the shredding of books or the banning of books or the destruction of books. There are some books that are junk. I'll be touching on that from time to time. I don't want to be overly critical, but some books just are not that good. But I'm never going to, say, oh, these books should be thrown on the ash heap, or, let's start a bonfire out back. I'm never going to do that. Books, no matter what they are, good or bad, there's something sacred about them and something uniquely human about them, and something about them that should be respected, even though a particular book might not be worthy of a lot of respect. So anyway, I'm not going to be encouraging the destruction of books, and there are certain kinds of books I'm not going to waste my time with. What kind of books do you like to read? Well, I've already kind of answered that one. I read a lot of everything. History is often top of the list, or it has been for a long time. Lately, I've been getting into philosophy. I like philosophy quite a bit. I like fiction, nonfiction, bestsellers, works of literature. I like poetry. I like theology, but serious theology, not the kind of theology that promises to make your life better if you just follow these 5 biblical principles that I've discovered by, reading every other word of the letter to St. Paul or some of that kind of hokum. I've already kind of talked about that, so I don't like that kind of stuff. I like some science. Science fiction, I'm not as big of a fan of science fiction as I once was, but I'll touch on that now and then. Mysteries, a little bit. I mean, no romance. I'm not big on romance kind of things, but outside of that, I'll pretty much, I'll look at everything. I'll give everything a shot. Why do you like reading? I just missed the hippie generation by a few years. I was at the tail end of all of that. So I did have long hair in high school and in college. And so some of the hippie residual stuff was still around. And there was this famous phrase, it's called feed your head. I'm not exactly sure what was meant by that, but I always took it to mean that you should read, because reading is a good thing. And reading is a way to experience other people, other cultures, other times, other parts of the world. There's kind of there's an argument, kind of a false argument about what's more important, experiencing something or reading about it. I think that's a false dilemma. They go together. You can experience something and it can be charged with excitement and wonderfulness, but if you're unaware of what it really is that you're experiencing, and you kind of don't know what's happening there, your experience just becomes this ephemeral thing that you forget pretty quickly. However, if you read about a thing and then experience it, the reading will kind of enhance your experience. I'm thinking a more concrete example. If you're going to travel, say, to Rome or to London, read about it first. Get a sense of what it is you're going to be looking at so you can appreciate what's there. So what's more important, experience or reading? They're both equally important, but I think reading has primary importance. I think, and also another reason for reading, not just for me, but I think for everybody, is if you read widely and you stay open to what you're reading, it can make you a better person, more tolerant, kinder, more curious, better able to adapt to changing situations, less likely to believe in conspiracy theories and promises of con men of the political variety or the health variety or whatever. The key here, of course, is to read widely. I know some people kind of narrow the reading down. There's really nothing wrong with that if you prefer mystery stories or romances, but you are kind of narrowing your vision. You're kind of creating a tunnel vision situation for yourself. And that could be problematic after a while. I think a good way of knowing if you're reading enough and you're getting all the benefits of reading is if you do experience the positiveness, your curiosity about the world around you increases. If your reading has become too narrow, you won't get those benefits. Instead, you'll start to become very intolerant of others. You won't have time or patience with people who don't see things your way. Your focus will narrow. You can even become less humane. If your reading experience has driven you to become impatient, it has left you with a kind of feeling of a free-floating anger. If you look upon other people as less than you are, and pretty soon you'll be calling for the shredding of books, and then that's a short step from there to the burning of books. If that's where your reading experience is taking you, then it's taking you in the wrong direction. And my advice would be go for a long walk, get some fresh air, get a good night's sleep, then come back and pick out a book that is going to challenge you, a book that's going to reveal a new kind of people or a new culture to you or another time or ideas that might even upset you. But sit and read it and give it a chance, and then be on your way and just widen your horizons. Read widely. That's my big advice for myself and for everyone else. Another reasons why I like to read, I do like that feeling of accomplishment when I finished a book, especially a very difficult and challenging book. I don't know where that comes from, but it's just the idea. I've completed something. I've added some memory to my brain, some other things I can draw from in the future. Of course, I read for entertainment. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. I've been intrigued lately when I read about or hear about therapists and psychologists who are engaging in kind of a reading therapy for some of their patients. Here, read this book. And they're not giving them self-help books. They're just giving them entertaining books or books about history or something. Just, it allows you to sit and collect yourself and also to refocus yourself, to take yourself out of yourself. You go to another time or you're communing with the thoughts of another person who's nothing like you, and it gets you off yourself. We live in a very narcissistic age, and that's causing a lot of damage. I think reading is a good way, it's kind of self-maintenance. You can kind of get away from that. Also, I think I must say that for me, I'm most alive when I'm reading. I'm an introvert. Reading is kind of an introvert's pastime. Not necessarily, you don't have to be an introvert to enjoy reading, but as an introvert, reading is the perfect thing. I'm most myself. Ironically, when you're reading, especially if you're reading memoirs or a diary of someone else or someone's autobiography, you're kind of with that person. That person has now entered your head, even if it's someone who lived 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. I love to read the Greeks and the Romans and the Egyptians and the Assyrians and the Babylonians. I love reading ancient texts, but it's just a wonderful experience. My brain is firing on all cylinders when I read. I think I'm most myself at that time. So that's another reason why I like to read. How did you develop a passion for reading? It was just the people around me. I have a cousin who was about 4 years older than I am. When we were younger, I looked up to him as an older brother. I thought he was the coolest guy ever, and he read constantly. And I thought, well, I want to read too. And so that got me into reading. As time went on, I just kind of developed an appreciation for literature. Also, the idea that it's good to be smart, it's bad to be stupid. How do you want to be smart? Read books. You learn things, you'll find out about things, you'll gain a vast knowledge of the world. So there are great benefits to be had. And also, I keep coming back to the entertainment value. Nothing like a good book. What questions would you like to ask other booktubers? The same questions I'm responding to right now. Why did you do this? What do you think about it? And what kind of books do you like? What challenges might you face in starting and maintaining a BookTube channel? First and foremost, the challenge of technology. As an academic, as a college instructor, I've had to keep up with the technology to some degree. I know how to do the basics, but I always fumble with it. I fumble with the modern technology in much the same way that my parents fumbled with the remote for their TVs. I often lose things, or I won't know how to connect with things, and I get very frustrated with it. And also, I'm not going to do anything really fancy here. This is the bare bones production values I have right here. But the technology often troubles me and causes me a lot of grief, so that might be a problem or a challenge. Also, just before I started this, my first posting, I stumbled upon a couple of booktubers who were talking about the dark side of BookTube. And this was very frustrating. And it almost talked me out of wanting to do a BookTube channel. But then again, Steve Donahue comes to the rescue, and he answered those the dark side of BookTube rather well. The dark side is it'll take up all of your time. You're gonna not enjoy reading anymore. You're gonna feel put upon and all of this. But Steve Donahue kind of pointed out that those are problems of your own making. And also, I think some people that get frustrated with BookTube, I think they have signed on to this because they're looking for some kind of celebrity or fame, and that's not what this is about. At least that's not what it is about for me. I love books. I can't imagine anything getting in the way of that. And again, I think people who have problems with BookTube and who bail after a while, they've just brought their problems on themselves. BookTube makes no demands on you or on your time. What's in your book collection? This is just a little bit of it here. See Shakespeare up there? Right there. Should give you a little clue where we're heading with this. I'm going to post another kind of a tour of my library in the very near future, and we can look at it then. I think I've already mentioned history. I like fiction. I do read a lot of fiction, literature, poetry, and those things. Where do you read? I wrote something here. Where do you read? In a chair, in the car, in my bed, at the store, on the floor, standing on my head. Apologies to Dr. Seuss. I'll read anywhere. I'm one of those people who always carries a book with him. Even if I'm running chores, running errands on a Saturday morning, I always throw a book in the car, just in case my car breaks down and it takes AAA a while to get there. So that's who I am, and that's what I'm about so far, a little bit. I'll be putting up some more posts very soon. I thank you for your kind patience in listening to me, and I'm looking forward to being a member of BookTube.